The kettle on Myrtle Underwood's stove whistled its familiar tune, a welcome serenade in the quaint kitchen of her snug, albeit dusty townhouse in Cardiff. A thin layer of poppy seed dust, stubbornly clinging to the window panes, caught the golden rays of the morning sun, transforming into tiny constellations that shimmered above stacks of magical tomes and her grandmother's well-worn cooking pots. Myrtle was perched on the edge of a sagging armchair, its upholstery faded from decades of tea stains and lazy afternoon sunlight. Before her, spread atop an intricately patterned, if slightly singed, carpet, was a collection of ancient scrolls, bits of parchment more fragile than butterfly wings. Her hand hovered over them, fingers stained with ink as though she had attempted negotiating with a rather petulant quill. Yet, these luxuries of the mundane world around her felt like an ill-fitting cloak. Despite the tranquility in her kitchen and the rhythm of life in the bustling city outside, Myrtle's soul wrestled with unrest, a persistent itch she couldn't quite scratch. She adjusted herself in the chair, crumbling one of her grandmother's infamous forgotten biscuits beneath her heel, and winced. Of course, to the outsider, Myrtle's life might have seemed perfectly normal. Mid-level position at the ministry's Department of Mysteries. A classic British fondness for late-night cheese sandwiches, an affinity for peculiar socks, nothing particularly disruptive, benign monotony like a spell cast years ago that had yet to lose its luster. But inside her quiet sanctuary, there lingered echoes of the past, whispers of that classified experiment gone awry, of shattered memories that filtered in and out of her dreams like wayward gusts. And then there was the mark. The mysterious, unsettling mark tattooed upon her wrist, sparking questions unuttered yet profoundly present. Her gaze drifted to the dusty top shelf where a peculiar tome waited, its leather cover embossed with runes that tingled whenever she drew near. A relic of her misadventures, or perhaps a guide to the journey she'd yet to undertake. The thought was both thrilling and terrifying. Myrtle was wary of the ordinary, of clinging too passionately to this world with its tedium and comfort. Her fingers brushed lightly against the scrolls again, testing the borders of her courage. She felt the silent hum of mystery just beyond her reach, waiting, like the kettle about to dance to its next crescendo. In that moment of quiet decision, as her familiar world enveloped her in convenience, Myrtle found herself yearning for the whisper of something more. Something beyond cardigans and night shifts and that quaint kitchen where so much was yet to unfold. The revelation was as unwelcome as a cold winter drought, yet it was awakening, chance brushing the shoulder of certainty. She sighed, lucky to be alone in the early glow, and let the kettle's cheerful whistle welcome morning. The Department of Mysteries was a place that breathed silence, an ocean of unspoken secrets tucked seamlessly beneath the Ministry of Magic's bustling corridors. Myrtle Underwood, ever fascinated by the space's maze-like grandeur, found herself wandering through its labyrinth with purpose, her fingers subconsciously tracing the familiar path towards the archives. Though her habit of reordering records was dull to some, Myrtle savored the ritual, the way it allowed her to draw together the fragmented memories of her own past under the comforting guise of routine. But today was different. As she rounded a corner, the dim corridor ahead flickered with a pulsing light, faint and enigmatic, like a forgotten lantern searching for an audience. She paused, her heart taking up an uncharted rhythm. It wasn't unusual for the department's lights to behave peculiarly. Some joked they had moods of their own, yet this light seemed alive, carrying a wavering whisper in its glow, a gentle beckoning that crowded the recesses of Myrtle's mind with possibility. Almost as if it had learned the tune of her restlessness and composed an invitation only she could interpret. Curiosity burned away hesitation. Myrtle hesitated only briefly before stepping closer, her hands tingling as the glow intensified, revealing a worn door she barely recalled seeing. Its wood seemed to whisper rumors of a time when magic was raw and new, and before she could rethink her boldness, the door creaked open at her touch. Inside, the room was dimly lit, filled with towering bookshelves arranged like guardians. Except for the faint rustle of parchments, the silence was nearly tactile. Myrtle's eyes trailed upwards, squinting through the shadows at a small, dust-covered chest teetering on the highest shelf. With an aim as certain as the call within her, Myrtle gingerly reached for it using her wand, floating it down. The chest felt eerie yet familiar, its presence stirring her mind like a half-remembered lullaby. A sensation itched up her spine as she opened it, revealing a single rolled parchment within, its edges frail with age, yet aglow with an innate power. Carefully unrolling the parchment, Myrtle deciphered the inked script. Her eyes raked over the text, an ancient prophecy speaking of a power older than time itself. Words danced around her consciousness like fireflies in the night, dormant force, realities entwined, and guardian of the mark. It filled her with awe and a fearful thrill that raised the fine hairs on her neck. Connected, she thought, as chills coursed over the mark emblazoned on her wrist. This prophecy intertwined with destiny, like strands braided into a single promise, a promise laid out across history, urging Myrtle onwards, towards both peril and discovery. A sudden noise shattered the stillness, footsteps echoing closer. The door clattered open, and a figure appeared at the threshold, tall and striking in her expansive yet esteemed presence. "Ah, Miss Underwood," the head of the department crooned, her voice as memorable as the scent of warning. "It seems you've stumbled upon something rather significant," she remarked, her eyes two mirrors of intent curiosity. Myrtle hesitated, unsure of her footing. Had she overstepped by unveiling the prophecy without instruction? Could this be opportunity or threat disguised under the veil of departmental obligation? "We need to talk," the head continued, a slight smile breaking her stern visage, "about things that concern not just us, but the entirety of our world." A warning, a promise, a gentle nudge. Myrtle knew the ordinary had been ruffled irreversibly. Embracing the unknown, she tucked the parchment tenderly under her arm and followed the head into the swirling winds of destiny unfolding, feeling the pulse of adventure surge through her veins. Myrtle found herself pacing her dim, cluttered living room, a sanctuary that suddenly felt smaller, encroached upon by the magnitude of her discovery. Her mind bubbled with questions, the ancient prophecy echoing through her thoughts, reverberating with a sense of potential and peril. She was tethered to this truth, a guardian of something colossal, and yet, what did that truly mean? Her grandmother's old clock ticked insistently, each swing of its pendulum a reminder that time, elusive yet perpetual, was running on with or without her consent. Despite the head of the department's insistence, Myrtle couldn't ignore the tangle of fear that constricted her resolve, nor the intoxicating allure of the familiar life she'd carved out amidst the dust of ancient secrets. Why her? She was but a novice in a world layered with shadowy legacies, a mere custodian who had stumbled upon a secretive scroll. She sighed deeply, her gaze landing on a photo frame perched on the mantel, an image of her parents, beaming, waving from their makeshift boat along the River Severn. Her heart ached with obligations untouched, memories unscarred by prophesied burdens. They too had sought adventures once upon a time, but life had drawn them to quieter shores. Wrestling with the edges of her resolve, Myrtle wondered if this adventure demanded courage beyond her grasp. Outside her window, the Cardiff streets buzzed with the ever-present vibrancy of a world unencumbered by ancient threats. What if she faltered? What if her pursuit only unleashed chaos upon those she loved? Even as her logical mind shouted caution, a part of her, a part so deeply buried that she'd scarcely acknowledged it, longed for the thrill of purpose. Could she shackle herself to the monotony of routine, knowing every heartbeat echoed with untapped potential? Yet, how could she possibly leave it all behind? The thought of abandoning her world, her friendships woven through years at the ministry, felt like tearing pages from a beloved book. Her fingertips traced the mark on her wrist, and its warmth anchored her with unspoken truths. The prophecy held a promise yet to be fulfilled, a path lit by the flicker of hope. And perhaps it was time to trust the unknown. Still, doubt cast its shadow, and Myrtle hesitated, torn between the comforting embrace of what she knew and the invigorating whisper of what could be. As she sat heavily into her sagging armchair, the kettle on her stove began its familiar tune once more. In that lull, she grasped the importance of choice, the chance to redefine her destiny or let it slip into the cracks of unwritten history. She watched reflections from the poppy dust waltzing on her walls, feeling as though time had been suspended for her alone, awaiting her decision. but perhaps tomorrow she would decide. For now, she let the kettle sing her fears to rest in the gentle cadence of another day. The sun was setting when a knock echoed through Myrtle's home, its rhythm gentle yet insistent. Before she could rise, the door creaked open with a quiet authority. There, bathed in golden light, stood a figure that seemed to carry the world on their shoulders. A mentor yet mysterious in aura, with eyes kind yet keen like stars amid the night sky. "Evening, Myrtle Underwood," he said, voice as smooth as well-aged mead. The air around him hummed with magic, ancient yet familiar, as if he had stepped out from history itself. Myrtle hesitated, then nodded, drawn by an inexplicable trust. "Who are you?" she queried, her fingers brushing the mark on her wrist instinctively. "I am Corwin Sage," he introduced, stepping inside with a grace born from ages, here to guide you through the shadows of your unfolding journey. His presence was a tapestry of stories, woven with experiences untold. "Guide me?" Myrtle echoed, her heart a curious mix of skepticism and hope. She adjusted her cardigan, feeling rather small in his wake. He offered a nod, the corners of his eyes crinkling with warmth. "The prophecy you found is but a fragment of the web connecting us all. Your mark is not a burden, it is a beacon. The decision to act upon it," he paused, eyes full of wandering conviction, "is yours." A spark flickered within Myrtle, born of courage and curiosity. As they spoke into the evening, plans formed, stories untangled, and myths took root anew. She listened, absorbed, as the dusk thickened around them, the mundane melting into the extraordinary. That night, for the first time, Myrtle saw beyond her fears into the realm of limitless possibilities, a world where even the darkest secrets could become fables of hope. Myrtle stood on the precipice of decision, the air thick with the gravity of what lay ahead. Corwin Sage watched her, neither urging nor doubting, his presence a steadfast lantern in the approaching twilight of uncertainty. Her cozy living room, cluttered with paraphernalia of her quiet life, seemed to cheer for her. Every familiar object, a framed photograph, a jar of her grandmother's homemade jam, pleaded with unison for her to stay. Yet Corwin's words lingered like magic woven into the room's fabric, promising a world beyond her wildest imagination. Myrtle felt the weight of the parchment tucked snugly inside her cardigan pocket, a fragile tether to the prophecy that had awakened her spirit. "To enter this new world," Corwin continued, his voice a gentle guide, "is to embrace the extraordinary at its very source, a place where ancient forces stir and where the mighty echoes of forgotten magic may yet shape the future." Myrtle swallowed hard, drawing courage from the depths of her chest. Her finger traced the mark on her wrist, its warmth a beacon calling out across the expanse of destiny. "My place, it was never here," she whispered, her eyes alive with a newfound certainty. Corwin nodded, the flicker of approval a gentle breeze that ruffled the edges of her insecurity. "We need to leave now," he urged softly, "before the curtain of night fully descends. Our first destination is Halcyon's Watch, a nexus of power where this journey truly begins." Myrtle cast a final glance around the room, her heart tugged by the life she was leaving behind. Yet beneath the ache, excitement bubbled like a newly cast spell. She would return, she assured herself, to these walls imbued with memories, a promise rather than a farewell. With a deep breath, she embraced the courage within. Myrtle picked up her wand, an unspoken promise of loyalty to the world awaiting her. The front door swung open as if the very house itself was lending its strength for her journey. As she stepped out into the crimson twilight, Myrtle felt a warmth enveloping her, smoothing away the remnants of doubt. Corwin walked beside her, the path unspooling into the unknown, where every step hummed with possibility and wonder. Crossing the threshold of her familiar, Myrtle Underwood embarked on an adventure not just across lands, but into the heart of herself, ready to face magic that existed beyond dream and doubt. The air was crisp and tinged with wild magic as Myrtle and Corwin approached Halcyon's Watch, a secluded realm where the very fabric of reality seemed to twist and glitter like a curtain of northern lights. The path, lined with ancient trees whose roots clawed hungrily at the soil, felt both ominous and welcoming, its silent promise echoing in Myrtle's mind. Myrtle clutched her wand, feeling its comforting weight and the gentle hum of connection with every step. She felt her confidence growing, fed by the vibrant magic that swirled around them and by Corwin's quiet presence. Each nexus has its tests, Corwin murmured, his voice ever the whisper of leaves rustling in the wind. Myrtle glanced at him, intrigued by the flicker of challenge in his eyes. "What sort of tests?" Myrtle inquired, her curiosity fueling her courage as they walked beneath the canopy of stars embedded in the evening sky. "Every trial will reflect your innermost fears, doubts, and strengths." He gestured toward the path that seemed to unravel before them like a great shimmering ribbon. "You must be ready to confront your shadows and allies alike." As if on cue, the air before them shimmered and solidified into a vision of ethereal mist, weaving forms out of the intangible. Myrtle could see figures she recognized and those foreign to her in equal measure, a tapestry of people from her past and faces she suspected might inhabit her future. One shadow stepped closer, resolving into a reflection of Myrtle, fear etched into her eyes. "Why risk everything?" the shadow asked, echoing her inner doubts. "Stay in the life you know. Comfort is power." With a steady breath, Myrtle addressed her shadow self. "Stagnant power is no power at all. I seek something greater than comfort, understanding," she declared. Her words rang true, dispelling the shadow with the warmth of newfound conviction. Next appeared a mirage of a familiar face, warm and welcoming. It was her grandmother as she remembered her, wise, with eyes sparkling like morning dew, a reassuring presence and an ally. "Remember, love is the greatest magic," the image said, her voice the kind of soft strength Myrtle never forgot. The shadowy vision of her grandmother faded, replaced by an enemy that loomed large in her psyche, the embodiment of doubt, shifting and dark as a thunderhead. It whispered taunts of failure and fear, tendrils of shadow stretching towards Myrtle. Corwin's presence was palpable beside her, offering silent strength. Myrtle raised her wand, summoning a spark of light that surged from her core, illuminating her determination. "You are not real," she announced, and her voice resonated with belief, tangible as the wind. The darkness recoiled, dissipating as light banished the tendrils of doubt. Having faced her tests with resolve, Myrtle felt lighter, the path ahead more defined. Corwin nodded approvingly, the nod conveying a profound message that words could not capture. "Halcyon's watch knows your heart," he said simply, as if that explained everything. They continued forward, the land shifting to soft meadows beyond the arboreal barrier, revealing their destination perched atop the hill, a place where the twilight shimmered with the promise of things yet uncovered. The scenery unfolded into clarity, each step a testament to her determination. Here was a foundation where future choices would find root, nourished by faith she never knew she possessed. Myrtle paused, letting the intricacies of the moment seep into her being, an acknowledgement of allies unseen and tests faced with fortitude. The journey to Halcyon's watch had prepared Myrtle for this moment, yet the sheer majesty of the sight still took her breath away. Atop the hill, the nexus hummed with latent energy, an elegant nexus of archways woven from iridescent threads, like the aurora, alive and whispering tales of an era unfathomably ancient. Corwin stepped forward to touch one of the glowing threads, motioning Myrtle to do the same. "Open your mind," he advised, his tone the hush of wisdom. "Halcyon seeks those who understand unity with the elements. Trust the magic to guide you, not control you." Myrtle inhaled deeply, nodding as she placed her fingertips on the archway's gossamer strands. An electric thrill coursed through her, mingling with the sound of distant chimes, a melody only she could hear. The air around them pulsed softly, capturing her senses in a dance of color and sensation. As she concentrated, flashes of insight burst through her thoughts. She saw visions of possibilities, of realities waiting to be shaped by her hand. Friends, old and future, stood beside her, offering strength forged from shared trials. Woven within the fabric of the watch was an understanding of balance, of sacrifice and unity, where personal fear met collective need. With each heartbeat, she comprehended that her path was not solitary. It was a convergence of hopes, of spirits bound by a shared mission to ward against the unwelcome proclamation of silence that loomed as threat in a world grown complacent. The magic swelled, weaving itself into her very essence, till Halcyon itself whispered her name, anointing her journey with hope as dusk's embrace slowly transformed into a night filled with luminescent promise. The chill of Halcyon's watch faded into a warmth that enveloped Myrtle like a long-lost embrace. The nexus's shimmer began to settle, revealing pathways that seemed to lead both everywhere and nowhere in particular. Corwin remained at her side, his silence imbued with encouragement as Myrtle found her footing on this new, ethereal ground. Myrtle's heart, still hammering from the ordeal, began to slow, each beat harmonizing with the subtle rhythms of the space around her. Here, the boundaries between thought and action felt porous, as if her desires could shape reality itself. She sensed an unspoken invitation to explore, to reach out, and so she did, her fingers tracing the air as if combing through silken strands of the cosmos. Confronting and overcoming her own fears had imbued Myrtle with a sense of clarity she had long sought. No longer was she the young recruit unsure of her place in the vast weave of wizardry. Each choice strengthens the tapestry, Corwin mused, speaking as though he'd caught wind of her thoughts. Even now, your decisions are infused into the woven reality of Halcyon's watch. Myrtle felt the truth of his words echoing through the very stones beneath her feet. Reality here was a living mosaic of past and future, each fragment waiting for the right moment to fall into place. Halcyon's watch was not just a destination, it was an intersection, a living convergence of possibilities. "What lies beyond the watch?" Myrtle asked, curiosity threading her voice. Her mind danced with images both haunting and lush as she pondered the unimagined territories awaiting them. Corwin shifted, his silhouette outlined against the glow of Halcyon's intricate lattice. "Beyond is where your journey truly takes form, where the power you seek becomes intertwined with the fate of our world." His gaze was steady, urging her to seek within for strength and assurance. A gentle breeze rippled around them, carrying the scent of distant rain and earth, a blend of possibilities. In that moment, Myrtle realized the weight of her choices and their endless possibilities. "Of all the things I expected," Myrtle began, awe tinged with humor, "conversing with a mystical nexus wasn't exactly on my list." Her grin resonated with an underlying gratitude for this new reality she was crafting. Corwin chuckled softly, but his eyes reflected the serious nature of their task. "Those who carry the mark must face what others cannot. Your gift is a beacon, Myrtle, one that will light the way for others to follow." Myrtle absorbed his words, the enormity of her role settling within her like a comforting gem, weighty yet precious. In silence, they both turned towards the dawn just peeking above the horizon, its glow melding with the lingering magic of Halcyon's watch. Myrtle felt a surge, a conviction, that neither night nor fear could drown out her resolve. The journey ahead, daunting as it seemed, beckoned her with a whisper of hope, weaving a promise of unity against the shadows yet unfaced. With each step that she and Corwin took away from Halcyon's watch, Myrtle felt ready, like an arrow loosed from a bowstring, aimed and destined to find its mark in whatever lay beyond. The sun crowned the horizon in golden hues as Myrtle and Corwin descended from Halcyon's watch. Each step away from the nexus hummed with anticipation, the thrill of unseen paths stretching wide before them. Myrtle clutched her wand, feeling the magic of the place still tingling at her fingertips, woven into her very being like an unspoken promise. The air crackled with possibility. Even the wind seemed to whisper secrets of the journey ahead. "What's our next step?" Myrtle asked, curiosity leading her words as the path unfurled into a lush forest edged with mystery. Corwin cast a thoughtful glance, his eyes deep pools of wisdom. "First, a return to the familiar," he replied. "There are old friends who hold keys to your path you have yet to unlock. The connections you've forged hold power beyond any spell." Myrtle nodded, the weight of past friendships shifting in her mind, transforming her fear into strength. These were ties she had nearly forgotten, yet they pulsed with renewed promise. Her heart swelled as she pictured faces dear to her heart, like lights guiding her through the dark folds of uncertainty. Together, they moved forward, the world a tapestry whispering stories of interconnected destinies. Each step took them closer to their destination and deeper into the unseen threads of a reality only beginning to reveal itself. The forest echoed with magic, faint melodies and laughter from eras gone. Myrtle imagined each note carried wisdom she would need, a soundtrack to the adventure mapped in the constellations of her destiny. With Corwin beside her, the journey was no longer just a quest, it was an awakening, a transformation in its truest form. the first true step towards becoming who she was meant to be. As Myrtle and Corwin ventured deeper into the forest, the foliage above them seemed to twist and sway with an almost sentient awareness, the shafts of sunlight dappling the ground like stars on a twilight canvas. Myrtle felt the magic in the air alive, an unyielding current that thrummed in harmony with the beat of her heart. Corwin's stride was measured, confident, as if he'd walked these paths countless times before. Every rustle of leaves and chirp of distant birds added texture to the forest's symphony, a reminder that they were but a part of something grander and infinitely mysterious. Myrtle's thoughts, a mosaic of uncertainty and hope, spiraled around her mind, each step bringing her closer to an understanding that eluded articulation. She was entangled in the magic of it all, an embrace both grounding and freeing, like returning home after a long absence to find everything had changed and yet remained comfortably familiar. As her gaze swept across their path, she caught sight of a glimmering object nestled among the roots of an ancient yew. Intrigued, she stooped to collect it, finding an ornate compass whose needle spun in lazy, unpredictable circles, seemingly attuned to a map soliciting only her intentions. "What's this?" she inquired, her voice bright with intrigue. Corwin peered over her shoulder, eyebrows arched with recognition. "A navigator's compass," he explained. "It points always to the heart's truest desire, revealing paths hidden even to magic." Myrtle turned it over in her hands, feeling a connection bloom, as if the compass understood her more than she did herself. "Invaluable for our journey," she murmured, tucking it safely beside her wand. The compass's presence was a balm, soothing the tides of her uncertainty. They pressed onwards, the sun painting their path in hues of gold and green, each step resonating like the pages of destiny unfurling beneath their feet. As they approached the edge of the forest, the undergrowth gave way to a clearing, where the worn cobblestones of a forgotten village whispered tales of lives once lived. Here, amid the crumbling facades and tangled ivy, Myrtle saw remnants of the ties she'd once cherished, a tapestry of friendships woven into the fabric of her past. She took a moment to breathe, to imbibe the stories embedded in the very stones of this place, a reminder of the untapped potential that lingered in her connections. Corwin placed a hand on her shoulder, steady and reassuring, words unnecessary between them. Together, under the watchful eye of the ancient forest, Myrtle began to see the path not just as a journey outwards, but an expedition within, into realms of courage and bravery she had scarce known existed. And with this newfound awareness, she realized, was where her true adventure would begin. The morning sun crested the horizon, painting the village in gentle hues of pink and gold, as Myrtle and Corwin stood at its outskirts. Each cobblestone seemed to whisper secrets of those who once walked here, binding the past to the present with threads unseen. Myrtle could feel the pulse of forgotten friendships, promises buried in time, now surfacing with welcoming warmth. Corwin smiled gently at Myrtle's quiet reverie. "This place," he began with a nod to the crumbling facades around them, "holds echoes of bonds worth rekindling. Magic is not just spells, Myrtle, it's connection." Myrtle nodded, clutching the navigator's compass close to her chest, feeling its weight as both guide and companion. The needle, once erratic, now spun with resolve, pointing straight into the heart of the village. Without hesitation, they followed the needle's direction, their footsteps resonating on the cobblestones like echoes of a time reborn. At the village square, an ancient fountain stood, its water still and clear. As Myrtle approached, the water began to shimmer invitingly, revealing reflections of familiar faces, some she hadn't seen in years. She inhaled sharply. These were her allies from the past, friends she had lost touch with, each face shining with unforgotten laughter and old loyalties. As if her intent summoned them, the water rippled once more, and reality shifted subtly. Figures emerged from the mist, friends materializing beside her as though destiny had woven its own tapestry anew. Myrtle's heart soared, her resolve firming in the presence of companions whose paths would intertwine with hers once more. She could feel the surge of shared purpose, and as they clustered together beneath the unforgiving sun, she realized they would face the coming trials as one. Corwin watched, a silent sentinel to the forging of bonds. Myrtle knew then their journey had shifted, moving from solitude into unity. The elixir of hope was no longer a distant dream, but a tangible reality bound by friendship and magic.